Part 66. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 653. ETA Euro trademark S. Just that Yu Fei has been convinced that Zhao Guo has been instigated by treacherous ministers, and because he is waiting for Lu Feng and others to come back, he has ignored it. In the more than 10 days after Lu Feng left the army and went to Beijing, there was no news from either Yu Fei's army or Jin Wush's army, as if Lu Feng had left and disappeared. In this regard, some soldiers of the Yuejia army even doubted whether Lu Feng was just a man seeking fame and reputation. After making a promise, he failed to implement it because the Jin army's defense was too strong. After all, this so-called gold eliminating team only had 105 people. After they sneaked into Shangjing, they fell into the People's War of the Jin army. They had to face more than 1 million opponents. Although they had all seen with their own eyes that the 100-man army under Lu Feng's command had strong combat effectiveness, and could even directly destroy the 5-square formation that gave them a headache, after all, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Some people even began to wonder whether Lu Feng and several of his men came specifically to deceive Yu Yun. However, after all the suspicions reached Yu Fei's ears, Yu Fei chose to believe Lu Feng. Beacon. After all, Yu Fei was able to become the Grand Marshal of the anti-Jin dynasty. He had met countless heroes from all walks of life in the past few decades. His vision of people was still very accurate. As for Lu Feng, Yu Fei felt that this person had almost no warning. Definitely a hero. Although he was unwilling to admit that the current Song dynasty was in decline, the fact was that the world was now in chaos. Except for the Song dynasty, Zixia, Dali, Dajin, and Daliao had escaped and stood side by side. And Lu Feng will definitely succeed in these troubled times. He seems to be a person who was born to end troubled times. Naturally, it is impossible for him to do any deception in this kind of matter. In fact, Lu Feng was not disappointed. On the 18th day after he sneaked into Beijing, Lu Feng returned to Tanzhou City with Yu Yun, Li Yuanba, Dian Wei, Pei Yuanxing, and 100 people. Moreover, every face of this group of people had a kind of heartfelt excitement and joy, so the moment he saw them, Yu Fei knew that they had succeeded. However, although Yu Fei already had the answer in his heart, he still couldn't believe that with only 105 people, he went directly to Shangjing, killed the Emperor of Jin, and returned safely without leaving a single person behind. This is simply a miracle. Therefore, Yu Fei still couldn't believe it and asked succeeded. The person who answered his question was not Lu Feng, but Yu Yun, who had already been unable to contain the excitement in his heart and danced with joy. Yes, we succeeded. Father, we successfully killed Wanyan Aguda, and the entire Jin kingdom is now in chaos. Yu Yun was really so excited at this time that he directly called Yu Fei his father instead of calling him father as usual. Call him Marshal. However, compared to the results achieved by Yu Yun and the others, the title issue was already the most insignificant. Naturally, Yu Fei would not dwell on these details at this time, but still looked at Lu Feng in disbelief. For Lu Feng, with his current strength, it was not a big deal for 100 people to sneak into the capital of the Jin kingdom and kill the emperor of the Jin kingdom, and then return safe and sound. To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Philu Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 654. At least compared to when he went into Goguryeo alone to kill the king of Goguryeo and then returned to Liaodong, it is really not worth mentioning. After all, he was just a peerless general at that time, but now he has become a supreme tiger general. Although the difference between the two is only 2 levels, the difference in strength is very obvious. So compared to Yu Yun, who announced the good news to Yu Fei with excitement, Lu Feng was very calm. Facing Yu Fei's questioning eyes, he just smiled and nodded slightly, indicating that Yu Yun's words were not deceptive. After getting Lu Feng's confirmation, Yu Fei finally confirmed Wanyan Aguda's death. He was so excited that he suddenly stepped forward, took Lu Feng's hand and said uncontrollably, "General Lu is really a god." Yeah. 100-man army went deep into the enemy's rear, beheaded the enemy's head and returned without losing a single person. With such a record, even Ho Huo Kyubing, the once famous champion of the Han dynasty, could not compete with General Lu Xiang. Yu Fei has been in charge of the anti-Golden Army since then. Ever since the Grand Marshal, he has been aiming to kill Wanyan Aguda and eliminate the Kingdom of Jin. However, because of the power of the Kingdom of Jin, he has been under tremendous pressure. Yu Fei can't remember how many years he hasn't been as excited as he is now. He even can't remember the last time he laughed as much as he does now. It can be said that this is the most exciting battle that Yu Fei has fought since he joined the army. It is also the first time that he knows that it is possible to fight without losing a single soldier. Compared to Yu Fei's excitement, Lu Feng was very calm. Even when Yu Fei said that the champion Ou Huo Kyubing was dead, his thoughts drifted back to a few years ago, when he was also named the champion by Lu Hong. In the blink of an eye, but I don't a Euro trademark T know how many years have passed. However, in the face of Yu Fei's praise, even though Lu Feng was calm, he couldn't help but express something. But just when he was about to speak modestly, suddenly an official ran in from outside the account and said to Yu Fei, "Generalissimo, the court issued another gold medal and summoned the commander back to the capital." On the third day after the Jin team left, Song Jiao Zhongzhao ordered Yu Fei to return to Linnan Prefecture with the main generals of the Yu family army. Yu Fei ignored him at the time, so starting from the fifth day, the imperial court issued gold medals every day to encourage Yu Fei to return to Beijing as soon as possible. So far, he has been awarded 12 gold medals. Looking at the gold medal in the herald's hand, he sighed, and then said to Han Shizhong on the side, "I have been working hard for 10 years to eliminate the Jin kingdom, and now I finally see a little hope. However, it seems that there are people in the DPRK who do not want us to eliminate it. Jin kingdom, so I filed an imperial petition in front of His Majesty. Now His Majesty has issued 12 gold medals in a row in order to summon me back to Beijing. It seems that it is impossible for me to pursue the victory. Marshal Han, Fei has to return now. Jingmian Sheng, I may not be able to see the army attack the capital, but I am relieved to have the army in your hands. I hope you can join forces with General Lu to eliminate the Kingdom of Jin as soon as possible." Han Shizhong listened to Yu Fei's words. He couldn't help but said anxiously, "Marshal Yu wants to return to Beijing to resume his life. Have you forgotten our previous analysis? Now the emperor has been deceived by treacherous ministers. If you return to Beijing, I'm afraid you will no longer be able to lead troops to fight against the Jin. Now it's over. After Yanago was killed, the Jin kingdom was already in chaos, and Jin Wushu had to lead his troops back to Beijing to stabilize the situation. This was a good opportunity to eliminate the Jin kingdom. If Marshal Yu returned to Linnan at this time, wouldn't all his previous efforts be wasted?" Fei Lu reminds you 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 655. Han Shizhong's persuasion to Yu Fei can be said to be sincere and well-founded. Whether it is for public or private purposes, it is a huge regret for Yu Fei to abandon the Yu family army and return to Linnan at this time. How could Yu Fei not know this? But he still shook his head and said, "Marshal Han's words are wrong. Your ability to use troops is 10 times better than that of Fei Fei. With you as the commander-in-chief of the army, you can kill Jin Wushu. It would be as effortless to destroy the kingdom of Jin. Moreover, His Majesty has already issued 12 gold medals to Fei Lian, which is enough to show his determination to recall Fei back to the capital. If Fei refuses again, I am afraid that the person who has been giving slanderous remarks to your majesty will they want to slander Fei for taking credit and leading his troops to rebel. If this dirty water is poured out, Fei will no longer be able to turn around. After hearing Yu Fei's words, Han Shizhong had to admit that what he said was true. After all, this company 12 gold medals have indeed shown Song Jiaozong's urgency on this matter. If Yu Fei still ignores it, I'm afraid it will really be regarded as treason. So although Han Shizhong didn't want Yu Fei to leave when he was about to win, he really had no way to persuade him. Lu Feng, on the other hand, squinted his eyes and thought about what was happening in front of him. Although he said nothing, he was constantly thinking about how to deal with it. After all, according to historical development, Song Jiaozong listened to Qin Hui's slander, summoned him back to the capital with 12 gold medals, and then secretly instructed Qin Hui and his wife to kill Yu Fei, Yu Yun, Zhang Xian, and others in the Fengbo pavilion on trumped-up charges. However, the current situation is different from that in history. In history, Yu Fei handed over the army to his two subordinates, but now he handed it over to Han Shizhong. Han Shizhong is also a very famous general who fought against the Jin dynasty, a national hero. He was brave and good at fighting, and he had a strategic mind. He was a rare handsome man who made great contributions in the battles against Xixia and Jin dynasty. Yu Fei was also one of the 4 Zhongxing generals in the southern Song dynasty. And as Yu Fei said, Han Shizhong's ability to command troops is definitely not inferior to his. However, because of Yu Fei's story of serving the country loyally and his experience of being framed by Qin Hui, his reputation in later generations is much greater than that of Han Shizhong. Putting aside these for now, just talking about the current situation, if Yu Fei returns to Linen Mansion at this time, it will definitely be a doomed situation. Once Yu Fei dies, Lu Feng's most important mission of traveling to the southern Song dynasty world will naturally not be completed. But with Yu Fei's character, he would never disregard Song Jiaozong's 12 gold medals, so it was completely impossible to persuade him not to return to Linen. After a long time, Lu Feng finally came up with a way. Before Yu Fei left, he said to Yu Fei, "Marshal Yu, I have something to say. Can you please take a step to speak?" For Lu Feng, who had just gone to Beijing to kill Wanyan Aguda Feng, Yu Fei trusted him very much, so after hearing his words, Yu Fei pulled Lu Feng directly into his room without any hesitation. There was no one around, so Lu Feng said to Yu Fei, "Marshal Yu, this time you return to Linen Mansion, it can be said that there are many crises, and you may be in danger of your life, so you must be careful." After hearing Lu Feng's words, Yu Fei smiled. Then he said, "General Lu is overly worried. His Majesty summoned me back to the capital this time. He must have just listened to the slander of the traitor. But with my many years of contribution to the fight against the Jin Kingdom, I still can't die for my crime, right?" For the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philo Novel app. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 656. Seeing that Yu Fei was not worried about this, Lu Feng couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although Yu Fei was definitely the best in the world in terms of military and character, his political sensitivity was also too low. Later, Lu Feng said, "Marshal Yu, everything has 2 sides. The sun moves at midday, the moon waxes and wanes, and the water overflows. No matter how good things are, if they are overdone, they will turn into bad things." After listening to Lu Feng's words, Yu Fei couldn't help but frown slightly, obviously a little confused about what Lu Feng said. When Lu Feng saw this, he opened his mouth to explain. "Don't Marshal Yu hear the saying that the master is shaken by his great achievements? In the past, Huichin the imperial capital was taken hostage by the Jin kingdom, and Jiaozong was chased by the Jin kingdom and fled everywhere. It was not until Linen that he became slightly stable. In the eyes of the people, both Emperor Huichen and Emperor Jiaozong had lost confidence in the Song dynasty, and even lost confidence in the Song dynasty. But at this time, Marshal Yu came out of the blue, not only stopped the decline of the Song dynasty, but also never fell at a disadvantage when facing Jin Wushu, not only regained in order to save the lost lands swallowed by the Jin kingdom, Yu also drove Jin Wushu outside the Great Wall. Compared with the three emperors, Marshal Yu's status in the hearts of the people is obviously higher. The people will only remember that it brings them a sense of security. And this person is you. Facing the army of the Song dynasty, the Jin army did not care, and was even overwhelming. However, facing Marshal Yu and your Yu family army, the Jin soldiers had to sigh. It is easy to shake the mountain, but the Yu family army regrets it. Difficult. It can be said that no matter what kind of reward Jiaozong uses to reward Marshal Yu Fei today, your contribution to the Song dynasty cannot be reflected, and the people of the Song dynasty only know Yu Fei but not Zhao. Under such circumstances, Song Jiaozong, may I have long been dissatisfied with you, but I have to rely on the Yu family army to fight against the Jin kingdom, so I have never had an attack. But now that Emperor Jiaozong has recalled Marshal Yu at the critical period when he is about to defeat Jin Wushu, there must be treacherous officials who are obstructing him. I'm afraid I've already prepared to accuse you. Especially since Song Jiaozong issued more than a dozen gold medals in a row to summon you to return to the capital, and you had ignored him before, Song Jiaozong must be dissatisfied. I'm afraid that you will return to the capital this time. It is bound to be a narrow escape from death. Therefore, Marshal Yu must be careful, especially the villains around him, who need to be careful most. After hearing Lu Feng's words, Yu Fei's expression changed several times, and finally he sighed and said with a smile, "Okay, I will be careful, and I hope General Lu will help Marshal Han to eliminate Jin Wushu." Seeing Yu Fei's expression, Lu Feng knew that although he had some feelings about what he said, he did not completely believe it, so he also said with a smile, "With Marshal Han's ability, even if I am not here, he is enough to eliminate Jin Wushu. In addition, I also know that Marshal Yu is loyal and courageous, and naturally has great trust in the court, so I won't advise you much, but, those who should be careful should still be careful." After that, Lu Feng took out a brocade bag from his arms, took out a pill from it and handed it to Yu Fei, and said, "Marshal Yu, this is a fairy in a place. Please take the life-saving elixir obtained from the blessed land. Don't a Euro trademark T be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the unexpected. If Song Jiaozong really wants to get rid of you, as long as he doesn't a Euro trademark T cut off your head, this elixir can save your life and make you resurrection from the dead." Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 657. The elixir Lu Feng took out was obtained when he returned to the main world of the 3 Kingdoms after finishing the war in the Sui and Tang dynasties. In the main world at that time, because Lu Feng unified the entire world, so Taoist Zhou Ci went out to visit him personally. Zhou Ci was a famous alchemist in the late Eastern Han dynasty. He lived in Tianzu Mountain for a long time, where he studied alchemy, learned the 5 classics, understood the stars and latitudes, learned Taoism and learned Liujia. It is said that he could command ghosts and gods and sit in the kitchen. As the saying goes, in the prosperous days of Buddhism, the incense was strong, and Taoist priests practiced in deep mountains originally. Zhou Ci also practiced in deep mountains, without caring about worldly affairs and paying no attention to worldly things. However, Lu Feng not only ended the chaotic situation in the late Eastern Han dynasty, but also continued to expand territory. Not only did he conquer small neighboring countries such as Yamatai, but even the powerful Kashan and Rome became the territory of the Dragon Kingdom. Nowadays, the Shenlong Empire has truly unified the world. With such a great achievement, Zhou Ci can no longer sit still. After learning about Lu Feng's triumphant return, he can't wait to come to Luoyang Palace to meet Lu Feng. Although Zhou Ci could not escape from the world before, it was only because his power alone was too small and not enough to change the situation in this world, so he had to do it as a last resort. In fact, under Zhou Ci's cold appearance, there is also a fiery heart to save the world. Although he cannot open his eyes in troubled times, the old man carries his sword and saves lives, but if he meets someone who is truly capable of saving the world, he will also make friends with heroes. Lu Feng was also very interested in Zhou Ci, a Taoist priest from the Three Kingdoms who was listed as one of the three immortals of the Eastern Han dynasty along with Nanhua Immortal and Yuji, so the two had a good chat after meeting, and they ended up having a good time. Through the conversation with Lu Feng, Zhou Ci also felt his determination to work wholeheartedly for the Han people to live a better life, so before leaving, he gave Lu Feng some pills and explained the reason. Now Lu Feng gave this one to Yu Fei. Therefore, this elixir can be said to be priceless, but because its effect is so magical, Yu Fei is still a little skeptical even if he holds it in his hand. However, when he saw Lu Feng, he did have good intentions, and he also knew that he would not harm him, so he couldn't bear to refuse, so he reached out to take it and drank it, and then said with a smile, "General Lu, you can rest assured now." Yu Fei didn't take the elixir seriously at first, but when he put the elixir into his mouth, it melted in his mouth without chewing, and then he felt a heat rush from his stomach to his whole body. At this moment, although Yu Fei was sweating profusely, he felt refreshed, as if all the impurities in his body had been expelled. Even he himself can feel that his cultivation level has been directly promoted from a first-class military general to the peak of a peerless military general, and he is only one step away from the infinite warrior. Such a change made Yu Fei feel very happy. Even though he didn't believe in the pill before, now he had to admire the miraculous power of Lu Feng's medicine. He even had no idea about Lu Feng's life-saving thing. I couldn't help but believe it. When Lu Feng saw Yu Fei's expression after taking the elixir and felt the changes in his realm at such a close distance, Lu Feng stopped beating around the bush and said to Yu Fei with a smile, "Marshal Yu, now you should believe I learned about this elixir." To read the underlined version of the novel, please download Phila Novel app, You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 658. However, there is one more thing you need to know, that is, you can be said to have two lives now. The first life is naturally your own. I know you are loyal to the Song dynasty. If Song Jiaozong wants to harm you, you can leave your life to him. But the second life does not belong to you, it is lent to you by me. If you want to die, you must consider me first. If I don't let you die, you can't seek death on your own. Lu Feng's words were a bit harsh, but Yu Fei could understand what he meant. Although Lu Feng repeatedly emphasized that he should be careful of Song Jiaozong, Yu Fei still didn't believe that Song Jiaozong would harm his life. Besides, the gold medal and the imperial edict, it has been ordered that not only Yu Fei himself, but also the main generals of the entire Yu family army will return to Linen Mansion with him. Before leaving, Yu Fei had been thinking about the last words Lu Feng said to him, but he did not say much, just deeply he took a deep look at him, then greeted Lu Feng with his hands, and left with Zhang Xian and others. On the way back to Beijing, Yu Fei kept thinking about what Lu Feng said and the magical effect of this elixir, but said to be honest, he didn't particularly care about the warning Lu Feng gave him. Although in order to prove his judgment, Lu Feng took out this magical elixir, which raised his force to a terrifying height by 2 levels. It is said that Yu Fei has almost no rivals in the world. But the matter of improving one's force is easy to understand. But if it is said that this elixir can bring people back to life, Yu Fei really doesn't believe it, and even feels that this statement is tantamount to fantasy. But although Yu Fei had always believed that Song Gao's summons to Beijing would not pose a threat to his life, but this idea was broken when the group was still nearly 100 miles away from Linen Mansion. In fact, everyone was marching in a hurry, but the meeting came a group of people were none other than the imperial eunuch who had come to deliver an order to Yufei. What the imperial envoy came to tell him was that Yufei missed the opportunity to fight Jin Wush's army in Zuxian town and not only deducted money from the army. He had no food and fodder, and deliberately moved it. He missed several good opportunities to kill Jin Wushu and eliminate the main force of the Jin army. As punishment for delaying the opportunity to fight, Song Jiaozong personally issued an order to put Yufei in shackles on the spot and imprison him in a prison car. After returning to the capital, he would be handed over to Dali Temple for interrogation and then executed. When the generals of the Yu family heard this, they were furious. Zhang Xian stood up and shouted to the imperial envoy, "Your Majesty must have been deceived by a traitor to issue such an imperial edict. Marshal Yu used hundreds of thousands of soldiers and horses to withstand Jin Wushu's 2 million gold soldiers in Zuxian town. This achievement is real. How can we talk about letting go? If we really want to let go, only 1/10 of our army will be defeated. In terms of military strength, would na Euro trademark it be better to simply fight a few defeats and retreat? Moreover, Marshal Yu has always loved his soldiers as much as his sons. He would rather eat less himself, but also want his soldiers to be well fed and clothed. When has he ever withheld food and grass? Recently, however, since our army sent a gold-killing team to Shangjing to assassinate Wanyan Aguda, the food and grass distributed by the central government to our army has become less and less. Instead of accusing Marshal Yu of withholding grain and grass here, why don't you go find out whether the officials who distributed grain and grass have colluded with the Jin state, or even conspired with Jin Wushu to prevent our army from defeating the Jin soldiers? Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share, 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 659. After Zhang Xian talked about the food and grass matter, he became more and more excited as he talked about it, and then continued, "As for what you said about delaying the fighter plane, you are just trying to incriminate it, so why bother? Who in the world doesn't a Euro trademark know that Marshal Yu was the most loyal to the Song dynasty? The 4 characters of loyalty and loyalty to the country are on the back of Marshal Yu. If he can defeat Jin Wushu and Jin Bing as soon as possible and avert the shame of Jinkong, Marshal Yu will definitely not look back. Be the first to rush forward. In this world, everyone can delay the opportunity of fighting, except Marshal Yu. Even if you want to frame him, you must at least find a suitable reason instead of using such a lie. The reason is to make the magnanimous laugh. This imperial envoy is specially sent by the emperor to deliver the decree, and his status means that the emperor is personally present. Even the royal family members and local vassals must respect the imperial envoy who delivers the decree on the emperor's behalf. Therefore, the status of the imperial envoy is naturally extremely noble. However, Zhang Xian's attitude when he spoke just now clearly did not put the imperial envoy down in his eyes. Not only was his attitude absolutely not respectful, but he also spoke harshly to the other party several times, which naturally made the imperial envoy feel angry. After Zhang Xian finished speaking, he took out a charge sheet and threw it in front of Zhang Xian and others, and said with a sneer, "Want to impose a crime? Do you think that without evidence, His Majesty can directly decide Yufei's life or death? Yufei, take a good look at this accusation. It was written by your subordinates and signed by them personally. What else can you say?" The imperial envoy's words shocked Yufei, Zhang Xian, and others. They really did not expect that there would be a traitor among the Yu family army to frame Yufei. Everyone hurriedly picked up the indictment, and were immediately shocked and angry. The indictment listed various evil deeds Yufei had committed during the years of fighting against the Jin soldiers. Among them, the embezzlement of grain and fodder, and the use of military aircraft were especially listed. Colluding with Jin Wushu, etc. are even more conclusive, so that uninformed people have to believe these things after reading them. In addition, there are also listed at the back some of Yu Fei's usual disrespect for the imperial court and Emperor Jiaozong. Many words and deeds are undoubtedly fabricated. People who are familiar with Yu Fei, and even those who are not familiar with him, know that the four words loyalty and loyalty to the country mean something to Yu Fei, let alone Gao Fei. Zhang He was disrespectful to the Song dynasty court, and Yu Fei never even complained to his subordinates. However, all these so-called crimes were committed by two generals under Yu Fei's command, his sworn brother Wang Gui, and the former deputy commander of the Yu family army. Control Wang Jun. When he saw the signatures of the two people at the end of the crime, in addition to Zhang Xian, Yu Yun, and others who were angry and shocked, Yu Fei was also quite unbelievable and even disheartened. Those various things listed for Yu Fei, he has a clear conscience. He doesn't care what others say. After all, he is not afraid of shadows. Even if he goes to Song Jiaozong, he has the confidence to vindicate himself. But for the betrayal of his subordinates, especially for the betrayal of his subordinates, Wang Gui's betrayal made Yu Fei feel depressed, as if something was pressing on his chest, making him breathless. He did not expect that even Wang Gui would betray him. As the commander of the central army of the Yu family army, Wang Gui even he is Yu Fei's fellow countryman. To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download the Phila novel app, Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 660. And like former military commander Zhang Xian, he was one of the first few people to follow Yu Fei. Although they and Yu Fei are superiors and subordinates, they are like brothers to each other. After many years of fighting side by side, Wang Gui became Yu Fei's right-hand man like Zhang Xian. He was even higher in rank than Zhang Xian. It can be said that he was the first person in Yu Fei's army besides Yu Fei. But Wang Jun was different. He was originally Wang Xie's old subordinate. He was the remnant army allocated by the Song court after Yu Fei regained the 6 counties. He was not in the same group as Yu Fei. After arriving at the Yu family army, Yu Fei placed Wang Jun in the front army as Zhang Xian's deputy. However, Wang Jun was very happy with his achievements, but had no talent. He relied on his bravery in battle. Therefore, he had no great achievements in the Yu family army for many years, and his official position had not changed at all, so he began to feel resentful and dissatisfied. Former military commander Zhang Xian, as Yu Fei's right-hand man, managed many affairs in the camp. Wang Jun, who had poor conduct, was punished many times, so he also held a grudge against Zhang Xian. It can be said that of these two betrayers, one took the initiative to collude with Qin Hui and framed Yu Fei, while the other was threatened by Qin Hui and had to give Yu Fei evidence in order to protect himself. However, no matter who they were all the main generals of the Yu family army, and their actions also chilled Yu Fei. At this time, Yu Fei also remembered that before setting off, Lu Feng had solemnly warned him to be careful of the villains around him, but he did not pay attention, thinking that the soldiers under his command were as dedicated to the country as he was. Therefore, no matter when he was rushing back to Linen along the way or when he was confronting Jin Wush's army, he did not notice when Wang Gui and Wang Jun came into contact with the false accusation in the court. However, Yu Fei was disheartened and did not want to make any remarks to the king, but how could the generals under his command just give up? In particular, one of the 5 tiger generals of the Yu family army had the hottest temper. He shouted angrily at Wang Gui and Wang Jun on the spot, "You two traitors dare to betray Marshal Yu, how can I spare you?" After Su Qing finished speaking, he raised the gun in his hand. The mace was thrown at Wang Gui, who was closest to him. Wang Gui also didn't expect that Su Qing would attack him without saying a word, and also directly kill him. He quickly picked up the Yanling Dao in his hand to resist, and then retreated. Su Qing saw this and wanted to pursue him again. At the same time, Yu Yun, Zhang Xian, Niu Gao and others also took up weapons and wanted to kill Wang Jun. Seeing that there was no conclusion on his side, the soldiers under his command began to kill each other. Yu Fei had to let go of the sadness in his heart, raised the Liquan gun in his hand and stepped forward to block it, and shouted stop. Then he just heard with a few clanking sounds, Yu Fei blocked all the attacks by one person. After all, he has now become a top-notch military general. It is not difficult to block the attacks of these super generals and first-class generals. With Yu Fei's order, everyone quickly stopped their offensive, but still looked at Wang Gui and Wang Jun with eager eyes, while guarding against the imperial envoy. Seeing everyone's expressions, Yu Fei did not step forward to accuse Wang Gui. Instead, he sighed and said to Yu Yun, Zhang Xian and others, everyone has his own ambitions. Everyone has their own choice. We don't have to force it. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 661. Everyone has his own ambitions and cannot be forced. 8 simple words explain Yu Fei's decision and his attitude towards Wang Gui and Wang Jun. After hearing what Yu Fei said, Wang Gui suddenly felt ashamed. He lowered his head and did not dare to look at the expressions of Yu Fei, Zhang Xian, and others. Wang Jun acted as if it should be taken for granted, as if what Yu Fei said was what he was thinking. Seeing that the internal strife between Yu Fei's subordinates was over and they all returned to calm, the imperial envoy waved his hand, and several imperial soldiers who came with him came over with shackles, ready to cuff Yu Fei. How could Zhang Xian, Yu Yun, and others tolerate the imperial envoy treating Yu Fei like this? Seeing this, they immediately raised their weapons and tried to chop him down. When Yu Fei saw this, he immediately shouted angrily, "Stop, what do you want to do? The imperial envoy sent by the imperial court was also chopped off at your command? Not to mention asking me to wear the shackles. Even if you chop off my head now, that would be I will obey your majesty's orders without hesitation, and your actions have trapped me into disloyalty and unrighteousness. I can only commit suicide on the spot to apologize." After Yu Fei finished speaking, he dropped the Liquan gun and drew it. The Zanlu sword came out of his waist and was placed across his neck. Yu Yun and others were shocked when they saw this. They all knew Yu Fei's temper and knew that he was definitely not trying to scare them. So they didn't dare to move any more and put down their weapons one after another. They could only watch helplessly as the soldiers put shackles on Yu Fei and took him to the prison car and took him away. Wang Gui and Wang Jun knew that although Yu Fei had no intention of punishing him, the generals of the Yu family army were full of anger towards him and would definitely be punished by him if he stayed, so they followed the imperial envoy to escort Yu Fei back to the capital. With Yu Fei's warning and threat just now, even though Yu Fei was on top of the car and unable to draw his sword to kill himself, Yu Yun and others still did not dare to step forward rashly. After all, they knew Yu Fei. Once their actions made Yu Fei feel that he was being disloyal and unjust, he might even bite his tongue and commit suicide. So although they were anxious, everyone could only grit their teeth and follow behind the prison car, not daring to take action. Not long after, the prison car finally arrived in the capital, but instead of going to the palace, it drove directly into the Dali Temple prison. Seeing this scene, Zhang Xian frowned and said, looking at the current situation, someone must want to frame Marshal Yu. Not only did they forge so much evidence, but they also roped in our people. Obviously they are determined to win. In this way, only I'm afraid they won't follow the normal procedure of interrogating first and then executing them. After hearing Zhang Xian's words, everyone was shocked. Yang Zixing frowned and asked, "You mean, they might do it directly in the prison? Are you not giving Marshal a chance to defend himself?" Zhang Xian nodded and confirmed Yang Zixing's statement. Su Qing immediately said angrily, "These bastards, Marshal Yu has devoted his life to serving the country, taking it as his duty to eliminate the Jin soldiers and regain the lost territory. What's going on now? Can you just be framed by a traitor and die? No, I will break into the prison and rescue Marshal Yu even if I die." Su Qing has a fiery temper and does what he says, while Yu Yun on the side is the son of Yu Fei, even his eyes were red with anxiety. After listening to Su Qing's words, he picked up a pair of sledgehammers and followed him, saying, "Let's fight in together to rescue father." To read the underlined version of the novel, please download Philo Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 662. Those present were all high-level officials of the Yu family army. They were not only loyal to Yu Fei, but also admired him as a person. After hearing what Su Qing and Yu Yun said, they all agreed and wanted to let's go to jail together. However, Zhang Xian stopped him and said, "Everyone, please be patient. Under the broad daylight, our actions will fall under the eyes of the enemy. Once the prison is robbed, the enemy will definitely notice it. In this way, not only will we not be able to save Marshal Yu, and will also put Marshal Yu into a situation where he will die. Besides, we are the only ones who can save Marshal Yu now. Once we are trapped, Marshal Yu will be in danger." Zhang Xian is Yu Fei's right-hand man and has won Yu Fei's trust. Not only did he fight bravely, but he was also quite strategic, so the generals were more convinced of him and calmed down after hearing this. Then Yu Yun asked, "What should I do? I'm afraid that they won't wait too long and kill my father at this time." Yang Zixing said, "If you can't do it during the day, then wait until the evening and take advantage of the weather. The trick is to trick us into climbing over the wall, without anyone noticing, and with greater certainty. Moreover, Marshal Yu has a good reputation. Even if they want to harm him, they must consider the feelings of other people. They cannot commit murder in broad daylight, so tonight we also have time." Yang Zixing's method can be said to be the best plan at the moment. Naturally, everyone had no doubts and unanimously agreed. However, Dong Xian was a little absent-minded and his eyes were evasive, which was very unnatural. However, everyone was focused on the rescue of Yu Fei in the evening, so they did not notice Dong Xian's condition. After everyone suffered for several hours, night fell. It was a dark and windy night, and it was the night of the murderous people. When the wind was high and the fire was set, everyone quickly came outside the temple under the cover of night. As the main generals of the Yu family army, everyone has good martial arts. Zhang Xian, Yu Yun, Su Qing, Yang Zixing, and Niu Gao are all super generals, and the rest are also first-rate generals. With their skills, it was not difficult to cross the walls of the Dali temple. With a push of their hands, they rolled in with their legs and carefully looked for Yu Fei's body. The Dali temple prison was not like other prisons. It was gloomy, and there were cells made of iron doors everywhere. Instead, it looked more like a mansion, with many pavilions in it. Of course, each pavilion is a prison cell. Everyone searched for Yu Fei's figure in the darkness while walking cautiously, not daring to make a sound. After a long time, they finally saw Yu Fei in a pavilion. At this time, Yu Fei was in the pavilion, his hands and feet were tied, and there was a name on the pavilion. Through the faint moonlight that appeared and disappeared, everyone could vaguely see the three big characters on the pavilion, Fenbo Pavilion. In the pavilion, opposite Yu Fei, there was a middle-aged general who was similar in age to Yu Fei and was talking to Yu Fei. However, due to the distance, no one could hear clearly at all, but from their perspective, they could clearly see that the conversation between the two was not pleasant, and Yu Fei was arguing with the man anxiously and angrily. Seeing this scene, Zhang Xian squinted his eyes and looked at it, then frowned and said, "That person is Zhang Jun, isn't it? Zhang Jun who is the mastermind behind all this." Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share.